My parents secretly charged K to my business credit card for my sister's world trip. She sent me a photo of my burning credit card saying, "Your account is empty now, so I set it on fire. I had so much fun with your card." I quickly reported IT as fraud. When she got back from her trip, a huge surprise awaited her at the airport. I never thought I'd be sharing a story like this, but here I am, still trying to wrap my head around the betrayal from my own parents. It all started with my younger sister Karen's graduation trip. A Europe tour that was secretly charged to my credit card for a jaw-dropping $120,000. Reporting it as fraud has caused a massive fallout in my family. But what choice did I have? Let me back up a little. My name is Ryan, I'm 29, and I have a younger sister Karen, who's 23. She recently graduated from college, and while I've always been proud of her, this situation has left me feeling utterly betrayed. Growing up, our parents had a unique approach to raising us, and by unique, I mean wildly inconsistent. I was always the responsible one, the dependable child who worked hard and built a life on my own terms. By the time I was 23, I was already financially independent, working in finance, and proud of the career I'd carved out for myself. Karen, on the other hand, has always been the baby of the family, pampered and adored. Don't get me wrong, I love my sister, but it was clear from the start that she was the favorite. She never had to work a part-time job or pitch in around the house. She always had the latest gadgets, the trendiest clothes, and the best of everything. Meanwhile, I focused on my own goals, and tried not to let the favoritism get to me. Still, there were moments when it stung. One memory stands out vividly. When I was 16, I'd spent months saving up for a gaming console I'd been dreaming about. I was so excited to finally buy it, but when I told my parents, their response floored me. "Oh, we already got one for Karen last week," they said casually. "You're welcome to share hers." I was crushed. I'd worked so hard, only to find out my efforts didn't matter. I swallowed my disappointment and pretended to be happy for Karen, but it hurt. Fast forward to now. Karen recently graduated with a degree in communications, and I'm genuinely proud of her. To celebrate her achievement, I even bought her a new laptop she'd been eyeing for months. I thought that was a thoughtful and generous gift. Then last week my mom called, practically bursting with excitement about Karen's graduation present, a month-long trip across Europe. I thought it was a wonderful gesture from our parents and felt happy for her, but then came the bombshell. My mom casually dropped into the conversation. "Oh, we used your credit card to book it all." For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. "We needed the points to upgrade some flights and hotels," she added nonchalantly. "Don't worry, we'll pay you back." I was stunned, completely speechless. When I finally found my voice, I asked her how much they'd spent. Her answer hit me like a punch to the stomach. $120,000. $115,000 charged to my credit card without my knowledge or permission. Trying to keep my cool, I said, "Mom, you can't just use my credit card without asking me. That's illegal. And $120,000 is a massive amount of money." She brushed off my concerns like it was no big deal. "Oh, Ryan, don't be so dramatic. It's for your sister's graduation. Family looks out for each other, and we'll pay you back eventually." Her dismissive attitude made my blood boil. Eventually, I asked, trying to stay calm, "Do you even realize how much this affects me? My credit score, my credit limit? I might need that for emergencies, and most importantly, you've completely broken my trust." But she wasn't having it. "You've always been so selfish," she snapped. "Why can't you just be happy for your sister? This is her big moment, and your penny pinching is ruining it." Selfish. She called me selfish for being upset about an unauthorized $120,000 charge on my credit card. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I ended the call overwhelmed by anger, hurt, and disbelief. Over the next few days, I tried talking to my dad, hoping he'd be more reasonable, but he only echoed what my mom had said. He accused me of overreacting and insisted that I should be supportive of Karen. Meanwhile, Karen seemed completely oblivious to the situation. She was thrilled about the trip and kept thanking me for helping her graduate, as if I'd willingly funded her dream vacation. When I tried to explain the situation to her, it was like talking to a brick wall. I started to wonder if I was the crazy one. At this point, I realized I had to take matters into my own hands. I decided to call the credit card company and dispute the charges. Little did I know, this decision would escalate things even further. When I found out how my parents had managed to book everything for Karen's trip, I was stunned. They'd used my credit card details, which I'd only given them for emergencies. According to the credit card company, it didn't qualify as fraud since I had willingly shared my card information with them. Just like that, I was left with a $120,000 debt, a maxed-out credit card, and a family that seemed to think I was selfish for refusing to pay for my sister's extravagant vacation. The betrayal cut deep. The very people who were supposed to love and support me had put me in an impossible position. I didn't know what to do. A part of me wanted to cancel the whole trip and put an end to this madness, but another part felt tempted to pay off the debt just to avoid the inevitable family drama. Still, $120,000 was an astronomical sum, and the very idea of letting this slide disturbed me to my core. If I let this go unchallenged, what was stopping them from doing something similar in the future? I couldn't help but question myself. Was I overreacting? Should I just swallow my pride, pay for the trip and move on? Or should I stand my ground even if it meant creating a permanent rift in my family? I felt utterly lost. Update 1. The responses and advice I received after sharing my story were overwhelming. I can't thank people enough for their encouragement. Reading through the comments helped me realize that my anger was completely justified. I felt violated, and rightfully so. With this clarity, I decided to take action. First, I called my credit card company again. This time, I provided more details about the situation, emphasizing that while my parents had my card information for emergencies, I had never approved them using it for this purpose. After some back and forth, they agreed to investigate the charges as potential fraud. Next, I arranged a family Zoom call. I sent a group message to Karen and my parents, explaining that we needed to discuss this matter before I took further steps. I wanted to give them a chance to make things right. When the call began, I started as calmly as I could, laying out why their actions were unacceptable. I explained the legal implications, the damage to my trust, and the immense financial burden they'd placed on me. I told them they needed to cancel the trip immediately, because I had already reported the charges as fraudulent. Their reaction was not what I had hoped for. My parents were furious. They accused me of being overdramatic and ruining Karen's special moment. My mother even went as far as to say, "We raised you, clothed you, and put a roof over your head. The least you could do is help your sister have this once-in-a-lifetime experience." I took a deep breath before responding. "You chose to have children, and as parents, it was your responsibility to provide for us. That doesn't give you the right to use my credit card without permission." At this point, Karen started crying. Through her tears, she accused me of trying to ruin her graduation gift. "You've always been jealous of me," she sobbed. "Why can't you just be happy for me for once?" Her words stung, but they also strengthened my resolve. "Karen," I said gently, trying to keep my voice steady, "I'm proud of you, and I am happy for your graduation. But this trip was booked illegally, using money taken without my consent. That's not okay, and it's not a gift from me." For the first time during the call, my usually quiet dad spoke up. "We didn't think it was a big deal," he said. "As a family, we've always had access to your card for emergencies. We thought this one time would be fine." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Dad, this wasn't an emergency, and $120,000 isn't a small sum. You can't just decide to spend that kind of money without consulting me." By the time the call ended, Karen was still in tears, my parents were livid, and I was utterly drained. They insisted I was overreacting and assured me they'd pay me back eventually, but they outright refused to cancel the trip. After the call, I knew I needed to take further steps. I reached out to a lawyer friend of mine and explained the situation. He confirmed that what my parents had done was illegal, and that I had every right to take legal action if I chose to. Armed with this information, I went to the police and reported the unauthorized credit card use. The officer I spoke with was sympathetic and took down all the details. He warned me that pressing charges could cause a permanent rift in my family, but I was well within my rights to proceed. At that moment, I felt torn. I love my family deeply, but their actions were inexcusable. The thought of suing my own parents made me feel sick, but I also knew that if I didn't take a stand now, this kind of behavior could continue in the future. For now, I decided to wait for the credit card company's investigation to conclude before making any final decisions. To protect myself, I froze my credit to prevent any further unauthorized use. This entire experience has been an eye-opener. I've always tried to be the peacemaker in my family, the one who smooths things over and keeps everyone happy. But in doing so, I've allowed myself to be taken advantage of time and time again. As painful as this situation is, it feels empowering to finally stand up for myself and say, no, this is not okay. Thank you to everyone who has offered me advice and support. I'll provide another update once the credit card company's inquiry is complete, or if anything else significant happens with my family. It's been several weeks since my last update, and so much has happened. I can't thank everyone enough for their continued support. It has been a beacon of light during this incredibly difficult time. The good news is that the credit card company completed their investigation and ruled in my favor. The charges were reversed, and the $120,000 debt was wiped from my account. Having that financial burden lifted feels like an enormous weight has been taken off my shoulders. But as for my family, that's a whole different story. All hell has broken loose. When my parents and Karen found out that the credit card dispute had canceled the trip, my phone was bombarded with angry calls and messages. They were furious. blaming me for ruining Karen's life. My mother left a particularly harsh voicemail, calling me a selfish and ungrateful son, but the situation didn't stop there. Karen took to social media and posted a heartfelt video about how her spiteful brother had destroyed her dream graduation trip. The fallout was immediate. Friends and relatives we shared began reaching out, asking why I was treating Karen so poorly. The story was spiraling out of control, and I felt I had no choice but to set the record straight. I wrote a calm, factual post explaining what had happened. I described how my card was used without and how I tried to resolve the situation with my family before involving the credit card company. The reactions were mixed. Some people supported me and expressed their disappointment in my parents' behavior, while others felt I should have just taken one for the team and let Karen have her trip. It was eye-opening to see how many people thought committing fraud was acceptable if it was for family. It made me question the values I'd grown up with. A few days later, my Aunt Maria, my mom's sister, called me unexpectedly. She offered a perspective I'd never heard before. Apparently, my mother had a long history of financial irresponsibility and had taken advantage of family members in the past. My Aunt Maria was sympathetic to my situation and urged me to stay firm. That conversation was a turning point. It made me realize that this wasn't just about a single incident. It was part of a larger pattern of behavior that had been enabled and excused for years. I knew then that I needed to set firm boundaries, not just for my own sake, but to break the cycle of financial exploitation. I made a difficult decision. I told my parents I wouldn't be interacting with them for the foreseeable future. I explained that I couldn't trust them right now, and needed time to process everything that had happened. I also told Karen that, while I loved her and was proud of her accomplishments, I needed some distance from her as well. Their reactions were as expected, negative. My parents accused me of tearing the family apart. Karen cried, saying I was punishing her for something she couldn't control. It was hard, but I stood my ground. I knew this was the right thing to do even if it felt painful in the moment. To protect myself, I took several steps to prevent any further misuse of my financial information. I changed all my passwords, closed the credit card my parents had access to, and opened a new one with a different bank. I also started seeing a therapist to help me work through my emotions and establish healthier boundaries. One unexpected silver lining in all this has been the support from other family members. My Aunt Maria and a few relatives who reached out to me have been incredibly encouraging. Knowing that not everyone in my family agrees with what my parents did has been a source of comfort. As for Karen's graduation trip, I've heard through the family grapevine that my parents are still considering sending her somewhere. While part of me feels bad that she missed out on her Europe trip, I remind myself that it was never my responsibility to provide that for her. Even now, I wrestle with feelings of guilt and doubt, wondering if I was too harsh. But then I think back to the moment I found out about the unauthorized charges, and the deep sense of betrayal I felt. That reminder keeps me grounded in the knowledge that I did the right thing by standing up for myself. This experience has been a painful but valuable lesson in self-respect and setting boundaries. I'm learning that love doesn't mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of and that it's okay to say no, even to family. For now, I'm focused on healing and moving forward. If anything significant changes, I'll share another update. Update 3. It's been almost 2 months since my last update, so I wanted to share what's been happening during this challenging time. The support and advice I've received have been invaluable, and I can't thank everyone enough. First, the legal side of things. After much thought and consultation with my lawyer, I decided not to press charges against my parents. It wasn't an easy decision, especially since many of you suggested I go through with a lawsuit. My attorney explained that since the credit card company had reversed the charges, pursuing criminal action would likely be both expensive and difficult with no guarantee of success. Instead, we sent my parents a formal cease and desist letter warning them that any future use of my financial information would result in immediate legal action. On the family front, the no-contact period with my parents and Karen has been both enlightening and difficult. It's given me the space to reflect on our family dynamics and focus on my own well-being. Therapy has been incredibly helpful in helping me process my emotions and reinforce the boundaries I've set. About a month into the no-contact period, I received an unexpected email from Karen. Unlike her earlier emotional outbursts, this message was thoughtful and mature. She admitted that she had been reflecting on everything and had come to understand how wrong our parents' actions were. She apologized for her initial reaction and for not standing up for me. Karen also acknowledged the favoritism she'd benefited from over the years, saying she had been too comfortable and afraid to challenge it. While I was cautiously optimistic after reading her email, I decided to proceed carefully. Since then, we've had a few phone conversations, and I can see that she's genuinely trying to understand my perspective. Karen eventually shared some of her own experiences with our parents' financial carelessness, things she had previously kept to herself. It seemed like the cancelled Europe trip was a wake-up call for her as well. As for my parents, they've been far less willing to take responsibility for their actions. From guilt-tripping emails to angry voicemails, they've tried everything to get me to engage. One day my mother even showed up at my apartment unannounced, causing a scene in the hallway. It was difficult, but I stood my ground and avoided any interaction. The dynamics within the extended family have been mixed. Some relatives, like my Aunt Maria, have been incredibly supportive. She's become a great ally and friend through all of this. Others, however, have pushed their family narrative, urging me to reconcile for the sake of peace. For my own mental health, I've had to cut ties with some of these relatives. Despite the challenges, this situation has brought about unexpected personal growth. The time and energy I once devoted to managing family drama have been redirected toward my own life and goals. I've picked up a new hobby, photography, and have been spending more time with friends who respect my boundaries. I've also made some significant financial decisions. I've started building a stronger emergency fund and contributing more to my retirement savings. This experience has underscored the importance of financial independence and stability. Last week brought some good news. I received a promotion at work along with a significant raise. In the past, I might have felt obligated to share this news with my family and perhaps even offer financial help. This time, I celebrated privately with a small group of close friends, proud of my achievements and free from guilt or obligation. As for Karen's graduation trip, my Aunt Maria told me that our parents ultimately sent her on a tour of California. From what I've heard, she had a great time. While I'm happy she got to celebrate in some way, I remind myself that it wasn't my responsibility to provide that for her. Looking ahead, I remain cautious but somewhat optimistic. I've decided to maintain no contact with my parents for at least 3 more months. I need more time to heal and evaluate whether they can respect the boundaries I've set. With Karen, I'm slowly rebuilding our relationship, but I'm proceeding carefully and keeping clear limits. This experience has taught me a lot about the true meaning of family. I've come to understand that family isn't just about blood ties, it's about love, respect, and support. The friends and relatives who have stood by me through this ordeal have shown me what real family looks like. Financially, I've become much more vigilant. Although I've always been careful with money, this situation has made me extra cautious. I've added additional security measures to all my accounts and become more protective of my financial information, even around relatives. Family gatherings I've missed due to the no-contact policy have sometimes left me feeling uncertain and sad. Mother's Day in particular was tough, but I remind myself that this distance is essential for my mental health and personal growth. One unexpected outcome of all this is that I've started helping friends who are dealing with similar family financial issues. Many people have reached out to me for advice on setting boundaries and handling financially reckless relatives. Being able to guide others through these challenges has been incredibly rewarding. As for my parents, I've heard from my Aunt Maria that they're struggling financially. It seems they were relying on my credit for purposes beyond Karen's trip. This has created tension between them, with my dad blaming my mom for going too far with the credit card. While part of me feels bad for their situation, I remind myself that their poor financial decisions are not my responsibility to fix. Karen has shared some insights about how our parents are processing all of this. She says they still don't understand why I reacted so strongly. To them, their actions were just normal family behavior. This ignorance frustrates me, but it also reaffirms that I made the right decision to distance myself. Reflecting on my childhood and early adulthood, I've begun to recognize patterns of financial and emotional control that I had normalized. While this journey has been painful, it's also been liberating. I'm learning to validate my own feelings and experiences without needing my parents' approval. In my personal life, I've recently started dating again. After dealing with so much family drama, I've been hesitant to open myself up to anyone, but I've met someone who's been incredibly understanding about my situation. It's still early days, but it feels wonderful to build a relationship with someone who respects my values and boundaries. I'm also considering making a big life change. I've always wanted to pursue a master's degree but held back out of fear that it would limit my ability to support my family financially. Now, I'm seriously researching programs and thinking about taking the leap. Making decisions based solely on what's best for me feels empowering. As I write this update, I realize how much has changed over the past few months. The initial shock and anger have given way to a calm determination. I'm no longer just reacting to my family's behavior. I'm actively building the life I want for myself. To anyone dealing with similar family issues, I want to say this: it gets better. Setting boundaries is hard, and there will be backlash, but your rights, your mental health, financial security, and personal well-being are worth protecting. Thank you all for your support throughout this journey. Your guidance has been a lifeline. I'm not entirely sure what the future holds for my relationship with my sister and parents, but I do know that I'll be okay no matter what happens. Right now, I feel stronger, more confident, and ready to face whatever comes next. If there are any significant updates, I'll be sure to share them. For now, I'm focused on moving forward and building a life surrounded by supportive people, guided by the wisdom I've gained and the fresh starts I've embraced. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I thought it was time to share the latest developments with everyone who has been so encouraging throughout this journey. The biggest news? I've been accepted into a master's program in financial technology at a university 3 hours from where I currently live. This 2-year program aligns perfectly with my professional goals, and I'll be starting this fall. I'm equal parts excited and nervous about this new chapter in my life. Deciding to pursue this degree wasn't easy. It means leaving my job, relocating, and taking on some student debt. But it also represents an investment in my future and a step toward fulfilling a long-held dream. For years I held myself back, constantly weighing how my choices might impact my family. Now it feels incredibly liberating to make decisions based solely on what's best for me. Things with my family have shifted in ways I never could have predicted. 2 months ago, I officially ended the no-contact period with my parents and agreed to attend a family therapy session with them, facilitated by a professional therapist. At first I was defensive, unsure of what to expect. My parents arrived still clinging to the belief that they had done nothing wrong. But as the session unfolded, some startling truths came to light. I learned that my dad had been hiding a significant financial loss from everyone, including my mom. He had made a poor investment, and for months they'd been secretly struggling to maintain appearances. This was why they turned to my credit card. They were desperate to keep their financial troubles under wraps. The revelation led to tears, accusations, and a flood of emotions. My dad felt deeply guilty for his poor financial decisions, and my mom felt betrayed by his silence. For the first time, they both seemed to grasp the enormity of what they had done to me. While their desperation doesn't excuse their behavior, it did help me understand the circumstances that drove their actions. With the therapist's guidance, we began to address these issues. By the end of the session, both of my parents had offered sincere apologies, something I never thought I'd hear. We've agreed to continue monthly family therapy sessions. Although I'm still maintaining strict boundaries and taking things slowly, I feel cautiously hopeful about rebuilding our relationship on healthier terms. Karen, too, has shown significant growth. She recently moved into her own apartment and started working full-time as she works toward financial independence. Our conversations have become more frequent and meaningful. For the first time, I feel like I'm really getting to know her as an adult. She's even asked for advice on saving and budgeting, a huge step forward in our relationship. On a personal level, the relationship I mentioned in my last update has grown into something truly special. Although we'll have to navigate long distance for a while, Lisa has been incredibly supportive of my decision to go back to school. Her own experiences with setting boundaries with family have given her valuable insights, and she's been a source of strength and encouragement for me. Financially, I'm in a solid place. Thanks to the advice and encouragement I received, I was able to offset some of the costs of graduate school and save a significant amount for my move. I've also become much more protective of my financial information. Recently, I had to turn down a distant relative who tried to guilt me into co-signing a loan. It wasn't easy, but I stood firm, and it felt good to reinforce my boundaries. As I prepare for this next chapter, I can't help but reflect on how far I've come since that shocking phone call about the credit card charges. The hurt and anger I felt back then have largely been replaced by a sense of empowerment and self-assurance. This journey has taught me invaluable lessons about family, boundaries, and self-respect. I've come to understand that true family, whether related by blood or by choice, supports your growth and respects your limits. And I've learned that it's not just okay, but necessary to prioritize your well-being and future. To everyone who has followed my story and offered words of encouragement, thank you. Your support has been a guiding light during some of the most challenging moments of my life. For anyone facing similar family conflicts, I want to say this: it does get better. Setting boundaries is hard, and there may be backlash, but your rights to your mental health, your finances, and your personal space are worth defending. As I pack up my apartment and prepare for this exciting new phase, I feel a sense of hope and possibility that I haven't felt in years. I'm proud of how far I've come, and I'm eager to see what the future holds. I'll be busy with my move and starting school, so I may not update again for some time, but I'll always be grateful for the guidance and strength I've received from this community. Here's to fresh starts, hard-earned wisdom, and the courage to create the life we truly want.